Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Can I, the ego, communicate with myself, with Atman? How is it to be done? So in what way do you want to communicate? What do you want to communicate to Atman?
Swamiji, I raised this question. This is only to say that it is treated that mind is a reflection of Atman. That is why I asked this question.
Say that again.
It is said that mind, you can get the reflection of Atman.
Right.
So how do we, suppose I don't suppress my ego, how can I do that? Or how to overcome that ego in order to communicate with this Atman? That is it.
But ego is Atman. The true nature of ego itself is Atman. So, it's not so much of suppressing the ego, it is transforming the ego. Although it's talked about giving up ego, etc., but ego, mind has these three dispositions: sattva, rajas and tamas. So ego can be tamasic, can be rajas, tamas or sattvic. So what we need to do is to slowly transform the ego, the tamas to be transformed to rajas and rajas to sattva. There is no need to suppress, because you cannot suppress rajas, transform the rajas. And that's what Lord Krishna teaches us. How by change of attitude we transform our mind from rajas, predominance of rajas, to we can make it sattvic. That's how the ego becomes sattvic. That's how you discover inner joy or pleasure, happiness rather, cheerfulness. So when ego becomes sattvic and Vishuddha sattvic, that is when this reflection, contemplation, shravanam, mananam take place. So that is when the ego discovers its true nature. When the ego is sattvic, or even ideally when ego enjoys Vishuddha sattva, predominance of sattva, that is when the shravanam, mananam, all of these lead to the knowledge that the true nature of ego or I is Atma or consciousness. So it's not that ego communicates with Atma, because Atma is the essential nature of ego. Like saying that the bangle communicates with gold. Gold is the essential nature of bangle. So bangle has to discover that I am gold. When bangle is told that you are gold, Bengal is gold which thinks that I am round in shape, I have this name, this form, this use. Who says that? The gold says. The gold says that I am a Bengal. I have this name, Bengal, this form, round. This used to be worn in the wrist. All of these conclude, this is called ego. Gold thinking that I am Bengal means that the gold is by this thinking confining itself to this Bengal. Therefore it feels different from another Bengal or from chain or from other ornaments. If gold recognizes if Bengal recognizes I'm gold, then there is no difference at all. This Bengal recognizing that the Bengal is ego. Gold having a given form is called the ego. And Bengal recognizing that I'm gold is knowledge. So ego is like Bengal with nothing but consciousness, identified with a given name and form, like gold identified with a given name and form is called Bengal. And therefore, this recognition requires the ego to be in a sattvic disposition. Because then only that ego enjoys a self-centeredness, self-abidance. It's called shama, dhamma. So all this samadhi, shatka, sampatti is description of sattvic ego. Viveka, vairagya, etc. If that ego then listens to the teacher, then it does recognize what my true nature is. So it's not so much suppression of ego, which is what people think that we have to do, suppress the ego, give up the ego, whatever, transcend the ego. But we do transform the ego. You follow? I think last night's question answer has intimidated people, So, no questions this evening. People must have been scared in asking questions, I guess, after last night's discussion. No, I'm a very kind person, don't. Presuming the sense organs do not function in deep sleep, how come one is able to wake up by touch or sound? Depends upon the intensity of your sleep. There are people who will not wake up by any touch, let alone touch or sound, even by bugles also. I remember my own experience anyway, when you were young. And so apparently I was sleeping and then they came and rang the bell and did all kinds of things, banging and what sorts of things. Nothing happened, So it depends on, if you're really asleep, then you don't hear. If you are half asleep or partially asleep, then it's likely that the sense organs may respond to touch or sound, etc. That means that sense organ is not completely asleep, I would think. But they say, if 6 people are sleeping, So Devadatta, Devadatta, Devadatta. No, Devadatta wakes up, not anybody else. That is what it is. I have not experimented to verify this. That if several people are sleeping and you call one by one name, that person wakes up. So this evidence is cited as to how you are woken up by the words of the teacher, the words of the scriptures. Anadi Maya Suptaha Yana Jiva Prabudhyate. The Jivatma who is sleeping in the beginningless sleep of Maya. Prabudhyate, when he is woken up, how? You are Brahma, you are Brahma. So how that Upadesha, how does it create knowledge? There are different views about it. One view is that just as when several people are sleeping and when you call by name, only that person whose name it is wakes up. Similarly also, even though you are sleeping in sleep of Maya, when the teacher says, hey Brahman, you wake up. So, how the speculations about how knowledge takes place. But this I do not know, in deep sleep, if you sleep, sense organs do not function, you should not be able to hear anything. Depends on the depth of your sleep. You may not hear anything. Touch, let alone, even sound also you may not hear. Then you have to wait. For waking, you have to, like this is what in the Ajatashatru Brahmana he said. When this Brahmana, Brahmana is a section of Upanishad, but a Brahmana whose name was Gargya approaches Ajatashatru. He is a very proud Brahmana and offers Ajatashatru, I will teach you Brahman. And then it turned out that he knew Brahman, but Saguna Brahma, which he thought was Brahman. Meaning he knew Prana is Brahman. That much he had. So Jas said, please tell me, I am very happy. Just by his offer he gave me 1,000 cows and please teach me. So Gargya became the guru, Ajasa became the disciple. Brahmana and Kshatriya, it's quite alright. And then Gargya kept on saying that I meditate upon the conscious being in the sun who has entered through my eyes and who is the self here. And so by meditation he realized the identity of that, being in the sun. And whatever accomplishments you have, he said, this is what I know. Ajasa said, that I already know. Moment Gargya said that meditate upon the conscious being in the sun, there itself Ajasa stopped him and said, you don't say further. I already know that. If you know that this is the result, he rattled out the result of that. Then Gargya says, I meditate upon the conscious being in the moon. That's all right, stop there. I know what it means, what's the outcome. I already have that. So one by one, Ajatashatru, this Gargya, kept on supposedly going Upadesha. But every time the Upadesha is complete, before it is complete, he is stopped. Because Ajatashatru already knows what Gargya knows. And Gargya then exhausted himself in terms of telling what all he knows, which Ajatashatru revealed that he already knows. Then Gargya became silent. That's all you know. That's all you know. By knowing this, you don't know Brahman, you can't say you know Brahman. So that is how Drupta Balaki, Drupta means a proud Balaki. When Balaki or Garge learned that there is something he does not know which Ajatashatru knows, all his pride subsided, like pricking the balloon. Like Shvetaketu's balloon was picked when the father asked, "Hey, did you ask your teacher about that?" Knowing which everything becomes known. Came to Shvetaketu was shocked. What? How can that be? Make him realize that there is something that he does not know. That's how all his pride, I know everything. So Gargi also thought, I know everything. He realized that Ajatashatru knows something more than all his. Then he became fit for Upadesha. Please teach me. Say, you are a Brahman and I am a Kshatriya. This is reverse order. Brahman is a guru, Kshatriya is disciple. Although in this case Kshatriya was a wise person and Brahmana needed that wisdom. So not only all his pride went, he became so humble that he would approach Ajatashatru, a Kshatriya means inferior as far as the caste system is concerned. And please teach me, make me your disciple. That much humble he became. Ajatashatru says, well, I cannot become your guru. The Brahman alone can be guru. And therefore, you remain guru, you remain acharya. Meaning that I cannot give you a formal instruction that a guru gives to a disciple. Tattvamasi. But I will make you know Brahman anyway. How do you make him know Brahman? By telling him that you are Brahman, by making him see. So this is a very interesting situation here, where Ajatashatru, although in the place of the wise person who should be the teacher, does not assume the role of teacher and still makes Gargya see the self as Brahman. How does it happen? Why did I start this story? It's because of the deep sleep stuff, So Garge is very sort of much ashamed of himself because he recognizes that he does not know something, and not only his pride has subsided, but also he feels very so to make him comfortable. Ajatashatru holds him by hand, asks him to stand up, and both of them start walking with his hand on his shoulder to make comfort him. Don't worry, you're all right. I'm like you only. It's all in palace. They walk in the palace and they come to a person who was fast asleep. Must be some kind of, I guess, gatekeeper or whatever. Fast asleep. That's why during the day, I think, But anyway, well, maybe the fellow was tired. So Ajatashatru called him. Now, he called him by the names of Prana. So Gargya thought Prana is Brahman. Prana is Atma. Prana is consciousness. Therefore, he has to be made to see that Prana is not consciousness, is not Atma. So Ajatashatru addresses that sleeping person by the name. That's how the names came. Hey Pandravasa, hey Hey Bruhan, Pandravasa, Soma, Rajan. So these are all the names of Chandrama or Prana, because Chandrama is water and Prana is identified with water. Meaning that Ajata Shatru calls that person by the names of Prana. If Prana is Atma, then he should hear and then he should wake up, isn't it? Doesn't wake up. So not only he is sleeping all right, but even when we sleep, someone keeps awake. When we are asleep, something is awake. Who is that? What is that? Atma is awake. What next? Prana is awake? No, the prana, because the breathing in and out is going on and all these physiological faculties are also going on. So prana is awake. If prana is Atma, and when prana is addressed by his name, He Bruhan, Pandrava, Saha, etc., then prana should wake up. If he is Atma, he did not. That means prana is not a conscious being, is not Atma. Atma is someone different from prana. So this is how Atma and Atma Viveka in a very unique way is told there. So when this is done, when prana did not wake up, it became very evident that prana is not Atma. For Garge to see this fact. So that's how he is made to see the fact of Atma being Brahman. In a very unique way, this teaching is imparted. Without Ajata Shatru assuming the role of someone who gives Upadesha, and still the method that he applied, the Prakriya here again, that he adopted, was fit for that situation for Garge to see that consciousness is Atma and Brahman is Atma. So from this question of this deep sleep, I remember that person did not wake up. And he had to be shaken up. Finally, and that also was for a reason. So when he did not wake up when he was addressed by his names, then I just shook him up, vyavasthit, He was really shaken up, then he woke up like that. Where was he? When he was sleeping, where was he? When he woke up, where did he come from? The question that Ajata has to ask of Garge, which he did not know. So that is how, where was he? Where do we go when we fall asleep? When we are fast asleep, where do we go? Sata somya tada sampanno bhavati. That time you merge into your own true nature. By merge is meant not that you merge, but whatever apparent obstruction is there, apparent vyavadhanam is there between you and Brahman. I am Brahman, I am not separated from Brahman. In the waking state, however, I think that I am a Jivatma. Therefore, there is as though something separating me from Brahman, isn't it? Even though I am awake, but at that time, I do not know that I am Brahman. So that Vyavadhanam gets removed when you are in deep sleep. What is that Vyavadhanam? What is it that separates me from Brahman? What is that separates this Bengal from gold? The notion that I am a Bengal. isn't it? What can separate Bengal from gold? Nothing. Gold is the essential nature of Bengal. But then the gold thinks, I am Bengal, that's what, as though separates it from its true nature. So also in the waking state, dream states, I have habitual identification with body. And therefore I think I am so and so. It is this notion that separates me as though from my true nature. The deep sleep, that vyavadhanam goes away. That apparent separation of the notion goes away. Not that I am not Brahman here when I am awake, but then my notion that I am Jiva Atma as though separates me, in deep sleep that notion doesn't remain. Therefore, I merge into myself, sort of. So in deep sleep state, the self merges into Brahman, his own essential nature. So where did he go? To essential nature. Where did he come from? From there. So this is how Garge is made to see what the true nature of the self is.
Swamiji, related to this, can you explain? They say that when we wake up, just when we wake up, we are with the self, and then it's a very, very moment period. I do not know how to ever experience that, because they always mention about it that a split of a second or something you are, and then you go into I am this and I am that to the parties. So is that
Because the deep sleep state is where there is no identification, and waking is a state when identification is. So between the state of no identification and identification, there has to be a very minute period of time from unidentification to identification. Therefore, if you can become aware of the very, very first moment, or you can meditate on that first moment, then I am free from all identification. This is Ramana Maharshi's, known with his instruction.
there is no way one can experience it or something? Is there any way to catch that split of a moment?
It is very difficult for us who are habitually, identified anyway. It is so quick. And so consciously de-identification is the way. Could you kindly explain again the meaning of the word ativadati? I could not understand how speaking becomes becoming very well. It is knowing that becomes becoming, not speaking. But speaking as satyena ativadati, speaking as satya. Satyena is the third case. इसको इत्थम भूत तृतीया means not through satya, as satya. So wise person as satya, meaning that he recognizes self to be satya. So it is the knowledge that I am satya makes me become satya, becoming. So when he knows I am satya, then as satya, whatever he speaks satya only. And satya means that he transcends everything. Ativadati meaning that atitya vadati. In whatever he says, he transcends. When he says I am prana, that means he transcends everything from nama all the way up to asha, everything, because so even when he is identified with prana and that I am prana, he speaks as prana. That means there is become free from the identification. So everything beginning from nama all the way up to asha. Meaning that he transcends those things. So first this one he was told that even the one who knows prana as a self also transcends everything up to asha. And then of course Narada was said that there is something more than that also. So satyena ativadati. In case of prana, it is becoming prana by the process of meditation, by identification. In case of satya, it is becoming satya by knowing satya. Satyena ativadati. So therefore, speaking is not becoming, knowing is becoming. So satyena ativadati, as satya, knowing the self as satya, automatically ativadanam happens. Because he is satya, he sees everything is satya, so what he talks is only satya, which transcends everything in that sense. So ativadanam, this is something unique about this chapter, this Upanishad. And so ativadanam should be only understood as moksha, becoming free from limitations. So in spite of all my lectures, we have now finished all the questions. Okay, so we'll not stretch further and we'll conclude with one bhajan.